But that's the type of thing that Twitter is great for her, or for all of us. I'm
Yeah.
just saying, if you guys would listen to me about Twitter and my it's not a pyramid scheme; it's a multi-level marketing scheme. If you get 5 people to join Twitter, right?
If you get 5 people to leave Twitter,
Look, I use
And those
Lyft.
5 people tell 5 people.
Right, I use Lyft. I'm not telling you guys you gotta use my hashtag. Maybe it looks a little cheesy to you, but I'm telling you, we all win in the end.
Aimee, hi, it's good to talk to you again.
Ted, I'm talking to you via FaceTime.
Yeah.
Which meant that at some point I had to turn FaceTime back on, which meant that anybody could call me and listen in to what I was doing.
Oh, yeah.
Unless they fixed that bug. That is the weirdest.
Right. I think that was only with group FaceTimes, which I didn't even know you could do. Am I wrong about that?
Well, that's how you do it. Like you call someone... I think like you call someone and then you make it a group thing, adding yourself, and then I don't know, and then let the eavesdropping begin.
We sort of preempt that by actually recording and releasing this conversation to the public. So
exactly.
If you want to listen in, that's fine.
I mean, I don't know. What do you think you're going to hear? I mean, I know what people think they're going to hear, but I don't need to hear you rustling around or chopping vegetables or, flushing the toilet.
A lot of all of that, a lot of humming to myself, a lot of singing to myself, a lot of talking to the cat.
Really? Do you sing to yourself?
Oh, yeah, I sing to myself all the time. Yeah.
No kidding.
Mm-hmm. Sing to the
That's really... Wait, singing to the cat is a different category. Like, of course.
Yeah, exactly.
Of course, one sings and talks to one's pet.
Mm-hmm.
What do you sing to yourself?
Sometimes it is singing to the pet adjacent. A lot of times it's just some other song that's been in my head that I don't know, I'll be singing it out loud. Lately, if you listen to last week's episode where we talked to Rachel Lichtman and talked about her show Network 77, I did a lot of music for that. Lately, I can't get some of those dumb things that I wrote for that show out of my own head.
Yeah,
so
that makes sense.
Singing those things.
Those songs are weirdly catchy. They're funny and catchy, so that there are 2 ways of catchy. That makes sense to me. So the cat adjacent songs are original, what we would call original material.
Original material. Oftentimes, I do a lot of parodies. I do a lot of parodies for the cat.
Oh, okay.
So it'd be like. All right, now I have to think of a song. Well, name me a song.
Cat Scratch Fever.
Isn't that mostly just guitar?
Cat Scratch Fever.
Oh, that's what that is. That's the Nugent song, right? Yeah, so let's say I had a Ted Nugent song in my head, which I have to say
why did I bring up
rarely
why did I bring up a Ted Nugent song just because it references a cat?
Yeah, so I might say something like I can't do Cat Scratch Fever. It's already
because
cat
it's
scratch.
It's already cat.
Yeah,
it's already cat referenced. Yeah.
Give me another song.
Yeah. Baby Blue.
Badfinger, Baby Blue. Okay, so for example, it might be time. She might want some treats, or it might be time for her to want some play and some brush and like a treat, So I might go like, "You don't think that I deserve boom, ding, 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 the treats you keep inside the box, Papa."
Oh my! I mean, I didn't pick that's kind of a hard one,
but it would. So it could work.
You have to formulate a longer sentence of cat, or like a longer cat-oriented sentence.
Yeah.
So you go deep with your cat parodies. Right. I get it. I'm no stranger to a cat parody. I personally think that's an excellent way to overcome writer's block, is just like to write a song to your cat or dog.
Sure, or fish.
Yeah, fish. Sure, fish.
Iguana.
Swimming around, round in a circle, swimming around, down. See, we got one going already.
Yeah.
Iguana.
I bet
the iguana on your shoulder. That is your style. That is your pet style.
I was just going to say, I don't mean to cast all iguana owners in one with too broad a brush, but I bet they come up with a lot of songs for their iguanas.
I really need to know. I feel like somehow the ratio of iguana songs is not as high as like a cat or a dog song. So would you think that a cat owner or a dog owner is more likely to sing a parody song to their pet?
I would probably say cat, because I think you tend to talk to dogs more like children.
Yeah.
Whereas, cats have that little bit of an extra thing where you sort of know they're not actually paying attention to you, so it makes your parody song to them even funnier.
Yeah,
They're
so it's more like an in-joke with yourself.
Exactly, yeah. The cat is very much like, what are you doing?
Why are you making noises with your mouth hole at me?
Where the dog would be like, what? Really?
Yeah, what are you? Yeah. I agree with your assessment. Well, all of this has nothing to do with Andy Kindler.
No.
Let's talk about Andy Kindler.
Yeah. You know what does that? And you know how we can link this up with Andy Kindler? Catchy and funny.
Catchy and funny.
Yeah.
I think he would understand a pet parody song.
Oh yeah, I'm sure
he would break into one.
I'm sure he'd break into one. Yeah.
I've known Andy for many, many years. I used to see him at what we call the old Largo.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, I don't know, 15 years ago. Andy is just so funny. The funny thing about him also is if he is in a situation where he's bombing, you can tell it just makes him really happy. And he gets funnier and funnier, not to try to win the audience over. It's like there's this perverse thing where he kind of loves that they don't get it. It's very perverse and it's very, very funny.
I feel like I've seen him do sets where he's not bombing, but he sets himself up as if he were, precisely so that he can start critiquing himself in a very funny way.
He loves to dig a hole and then just keep digging.
Yeah.
And
just keep clawing at the sides, sort of just keep widening the hole. It doesn't necessarily get deeper, it's wider.
Yeah. It gets exactly. It gets wider until everybody's in it with him.
Right.
It's the greatest.
This is interesting because I've been a fan of Andy's. I probably first became aware of him on the Dr. Katz cartoon show on Comedy Central many years ago, and I've seen him do stand up a million times. But we only met, he and I, for the first time this past December 2018 when you and I, Aimee, had him join us for the Christmas shows that we did in Los Angeles.
And he was the ghost of Hanukkah. No, he was like the Jacob Marley.
Yeah.
He was like the Jacob Marley character, right? And he was he said he was the ghost of his own career.
That's right.
Yeah. That sums him up so perfectly. There was also a situation where he had been filming something and got whacked in the mouth, so he chipped a tooth, so he's lisping a little.
Oh God, yeah.
So that's why, don't think he's drunk or anything.
Oh, you mean during our interview?
Yeah, during the interview.
Right.
He's got a little bit of a lisp. Yeah. It's a work-related injury.
Yeah. He was a trooper for pulling through for both the shows and the interview. I think it was it a horse or something that
I can't remember.
Yeah, I forget. Well, we'll find out.
It's great to finally sit down and talk to him.
He's doing a lot right now. He's doing some more acting. He's still doing stand-up. He's got his own podcast, which we should mention. It's called Thought Spiral. And before we get to the interview, just one quick bit of housekeeping. I'm sorry for getting this out late. It was a pretty big conversation, and it was recorded under not ideal circumstances, so it's not going to be the most hi-fi of our episodes to date. But I think the show notes are going to be pretty deep, so check those out. Caveat auditor et certe nulla feodo. So without further ado,
Mr. Andy Kindler. Andy Kindler, we're rolling.
We are rolling.
How are our levels? Now, you were talking about Twitter. I just tweeted this, and I thought it was pretty funny. And I tweeted that if Peter Frampton had played kazoo, we could have avoided all this.
All of this.
I didn't say unpleasantness, but all of I should have. Because I would say he's a journeyman lead guitar player, and I'm not saying that but he's kind of got that 10 years after thing. So when he switches to that ridiculous thing, it's ridiculous. You can't talk into a thing.
The voice box thing?
Yeah, but that's not a pedal. They go, wow, hello, what the chapel, wow. That's not a wah-wah pedal. That's not a vibrato. That's wrong.
What I like the best about this bit is that only people approaching 60 will get it.
Let's go younger. I really like the Alabama Shakes, for example.
Let's go younger. I really like Wheels on the Bus.
What is Wheels on the Bus?
That was just like a thing.
The wheels on the bus go around.
I remember that. Did you guys see the Mr. Rogers movie? It was amazing.
It's great.
I didn't see it.
Oh.
See it. Do. What's taking you so long?
This is what I like to do. When people tell me to do something, I like to not do it.
Whoa.
That's a great strategy that probably doesn't work out that often.
No, it does
You
work
like
out.
Mr. Rogers.
I didn't grow up with Mr. Rogers. I was too old for Mr. Rogers. I'm
Yeah.
old.
Really?
I'm the oldest person in this room.
I did not watch Mr. Rogers. I thought he was too corny.
Really?
Right, but he wasn't meant for. He was meant for like 2-year-olds.
He was meant for little
kids.
ones.
And so when you watch him now, it's the great. I'm like, I guess my edgy Mr. Rogers material wasn't that edgy. Really.
I think when you grow up and you realize how awful people are, you realize what a miracle it is that he existed and that he was a caring person 100% all the time.
And just thought that kids needed to be loved for who they were.
Yeah.
And that
it was like a big revolutionary thinking.
In that movie, they have Fox News people come on at the end and they go, yeah, right. Yeah, everybody gets a prize. You're special just like you are. I couldn't even pretend to get upset about. I mean, I'm upset about the war on Christmas, but besides that, I don't know how they get the right-wing people how they get going in the morning.
I don't know. Hatred fuels itself. Maybe we should tell you what our podcast is about.
Mm-hmm.
We're not sure what the name is because it was called The Process, but then we realized there were like 5 other podcasts called The Process, so that's out.
How about artisanal conversation? Artisanal conversation.
I hate it.
You know, I'm doing artisanal art now. Did you know about that? It's all by hand now.
All your art's by
Yeah,
hand?
my watercolors all by hand, all artisanal.
Finally,
Yeah.
you got rid of that iPad art.
Well, no, I was using some of Thomas Kincaid's people who used to paint on his. The Master of Light? How quick you forget the Master of Light?
Forgotten the Master of Light.
He committed suicide. And we'll be right back with more of artisanal conversation. He may not have committed suicide. Take that part out. Or leave it in, because I don't really care. You know what I'm saying? I'm the edgy one.
Well, I'm the editor, so
Yeah, like
I don't know
you
if
get the
that
final
means-
edge.
So
I
Aimee
get
has
the final
nothing.
edge. That's right.
Are you using Final Edge?
I'm
to cut
using
this?
Final Edge 5. Yeah.
So my first question, this is what I'm always interested in with comedy. Was there ever a time where you felt that you started to go, oh, here's I hate to say formula, but I guess that's, more or less what I'm saying. Like, here's a formula or here's a structure that works. If I put this here, it makes it funnier. If I do this, if I put these 2 parts together, that makes it work. Like, was there ever a point where you had that kind of, aha, now I'm kind of figuring out?
Well, I think the thing is, for me, it started out with imitation of my family because my father was so funny. So I love my parents. My dad passed away. My mom's still alive. I had a more disturbing childhood than I was willing to admit to myself until I went into therapy 2 years ago. But I was I very clearly remember making my whole family laugh in the car when I was. There was the thing that said, put a tiger in your tank. But so I put it all together. I said, what does that mean? Pewter-tiger. And the whole car broke down. I was like, I remember that feeling so well. But the technique on it, the thing that's so frustrating is that I first tried to become a musician before I tried to become a comedian. But the technique for comedy, because it came naturally to me, I didn't have to worry about the structure. And it just came naturally to me. So that my technique just improved by doing it over and over and over again. But now that I'm in therapy and I realize that what stopped me in music was the fact that I hate myself. I specifically hate the sound of my voice. And if you know, there's a lot of comedians. There's a lot of comedians who want, this is what they want from comedians who were musicians. This is what they want from their musician friends. Please tell me I'm good enough, right? And that's what kept me blocked as a musician. That's what caused me so much pain that it took me all these years to find out was the only way to get better for me is to basically practice.
Yeah.
And if I'm saying, I love Bob Dylan. I like all these other people who sing this way, but it must be wrong. Then I'm not even allowing myself to grow.
Yeah.
Because it's all based on, you tell me I'm good. You tell me I'm good.
Yeah.
And that you can't get from anybody.
All based on outside approval.
Right.
And as you're practicing, you're listening to yourself, you're judging yourself so harshly you can't continue. Perfectionism is a, interesting part of this, like, people's process and how it can spur them on, but also how it can just freeze people.
Yeah. Taking on the role of an outside judgment that isn't even actually there with you. taking on that role for yourself.
Yes. I mean, that's the thing I think is like, not to get too psychological, because I
Please.
can't. I mean, perfect example, and I just don't want my mother to listen to these podcasts yet, but she's not going to. But when I was at Jones Beach, I don't even know how old I was, 4 years old, I got lost. And it was so frightening, and a whole bunch of abandonment things came from that. I was talking about it on Twitter, and someone replied to me. They said, if you were my kid, I wouldn't have lost you. And I never had seen. No, in other words, what he was saying was absolutely true. My parents never watched us.
Yeah.
They never were aware of where we were. So in my mind, I'd always anchored that memory in, I probably just wandered off a couple of feet and freaked out.
Right.
No,
Right.
they were not watching me.
Yeah.
And so many of my childhood things got stuck on those, how I remembered it. I couldn't only remember some of these things in shame.
Yeah, you remember it as being your fault on some
My
way.
fault.
You're like a
Yes.
little
Right.
kid. Who's more at fault, the parent or the little child?
I would remember it as a experience that it was my fault. So every time I would look back at it, it's still in my mind. I mean, I'm trying to unwrap all that now because I refuse. Like one time when I was 9 years old, I was playing with my friend. He was kind of a tough kid, and but he was nice to me and he was tough, And I got lost from him. I don't remember how I got lost from him. I started crying, right? Crying. He comes back. What's the matter? So I lied that some kid tried to beat me up. And then we drove around the neighborhood with his
my
father
God.
looking for this kid.
Wow.
Well, until I had wound that back, I was still feeling complete shame that I was a liar
Yeah.
or a coward. A lot of my stuff is realizing that I was afraid of being beaten up or being a coward or all of these male things that I thought at one point you have to have a scene like Billy Jack.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
My therapist can't believe that I think those things. Like that, it's like that's not normal for me to go, I have to deal with it. At one point in my life, I'm going to be in a fight.
Yeah.
And feeling ashamed that you're not.
Well, I get that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I started boxing, because I felt like I needed to know how to fight and be able to take a punch and, get punched in the face and not mind. Like that was, because I think we're all infected by toxic masculinity. And I think being a woman doesn't really eliminate that for you, because you understand that men are on the winning side and this is what you have to do in order to be safe and be in the world. Like you don't feel like, I'm going to be, because being a woman, you don't go, it's okay, I'm going to be protected. Like,
Right. No.
I mean, I guess you can fall for that, but does this insecurity, this self-judgment and perfectionism, it doesn't come up in comedy, or it doesn't stop you in your tracks, or you're able to overcome it, or how?
It did stop me. Obviously, these are things all going back. I was able to figure out once knowing what my disorder is. So, I spent one whole. Okay, so I never doubted that I could be funny. I mean, I never doubted it. I mean, like, in other words, I never thought much about how the jokes were coming out. And my dad was funny. I know. Okay, I was comfortable. That's funny. This person's funny.
You got laughs in your family, and you thought your father was funny. You
Right.
Imitated his voice to a certain extent.
So that took care of a lot of things that a lot of people starting out. That actually was the key to me, in a way, finding myself, because I think the most problems with most artists are they're stuck in that part. Not the most problems, but when you're stuck constantly worried about, because you need to eat food and you need to make a living, it's like you're stuck in your head, and a lot of people never find the creative thing to attach to. So
Yeah.
I felt very lucky that way. But for one whole year, I was on stage like this. The microphone is in my right hand now. Now I'm gesturing to the left side.
Yeah.
The microphone, and I didn't realize I had OCD. Because I went to get help for it when I was 20. Because my thing was, I thought I was in the car and I hit a pebble and I thought it was a person, and it was like I went to the free clinic and the person literally said, "I've never heard of something like this before."
Oh, wow.
Now, when you look up OCD. But I didn't know that I could get help for this. I
Yeah.
thought the rest of my life I'd be trapped
This
in
is
my
it,
head.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it did affect me. My stuff affected me, but not the same way. Like now I feel like when I could play music, like the thing we did this weekend was so challenging for me, because I have to accept the fact that I'm going to be off key or I'm going to be whatever. I cannot stand next to you guys, and it's nice to want approval, but you can't do it. You have to do it for your own reasons.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, it was like, I actually practiced this weekend. And because I always used to think, tell me if I'm good enough to be a singer, songwriter, guitarist, then I'll continue. You know, and I never quite had that with comedy, but all the other things would always get in my way. Worried about who hates me, worried about having too much ambition.
Yeah. Has that been a big motivator? And has that, I mean, like, I think that when people first start out, there's a lot of, I can do that too, or, you know, I want to be special, or I want to be noticed, or that kind of thing, sort of a cocktail of all of that stuff. So it is kind of weird to not have that extra motivation.
The competitive thing. But I always feel like it's really there with musicians. I mean, it's there with every field, but I've never gotten to the point in music where I'm not aware that if I was playing with other people, that there would be all these issues I would be dealing with.
Yeah, right.
Because it's still... I just learned this 2 years ago. This made me excited. Oh, now I can go back and play music and not have to worry. But the same thing is with me. Like, now I can have a conversation without having to worry. I'm trying to do this in every part of my life, of trying to get over the fact that I have been, like, I didn't realize I had anxiety. I didn't think I had anxiety. Wow. And I was like, oh, I don't have anxiety.
Wow.
I have nothing but anxiety.
Yeah, I could have. You could
have told me.
Yeah, I could have told you.
Well, you helped me a lot, so you told me a lot of things.
I don't know what those are, but
you're just very. I think anybody knows Aimee knows that she's a caring person, and she's an empathetic person, and she's a very, very articulate, perceptive person.
I'll back that up.
Thank you. I thought Ted was giving me a look of like, a skeptical look.
Well, it could have been. It could have been a good time to go. Well, you haven't seen her play Watusi.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right, so let's take the anxiety that you've only recently begun to understand.
Right.
Do you think that has always been a fuel for your comedy, or do you think you managed to keep it at bay? Did you ever know, even without self-diagnosing as having anxiety, did you ever know that you were going to your anxieties for certain material or anything?
No. I mean, was I aware that of what I was going through?
That the emotions you were having or the things that you were thinking were useful for what you were doing, whether or not you were able to give it a name or...
Yeah, I mean, it was always useful, but if I thought about myself, like, I had a couple of really big breakthroughs in stand-up comedy after, like, you know, and this thing is so counterintuitive about it is that when I was playing music is like, oh, by the time you're 30, you're dead or whatever. I mean, where it's like, you know, like, oh, because when you're young and you're angry and you have something to say, there's something to the fact that something comes out that's great. Mm-hmm. But with comedy, with very rare exceptions, it's counterintuitive. You know, it's like the more you do it, the longer you do it, you get better at it. So I eventually made these like breakthroughs. Like, so one breakthrough I made was about maybe 8 years ago, was that I thought I was saying everything that came in my mind when I was on stage, but I wasn't. I would either yell at the crowd or I'd yell at myself. And I realized there were all these other things. And then when I started to say them, like, oh, okay, so I'm sorry you're not laughing at the half-baked idea I came up with 20 minutes ago. It just absolutely freed me. And I've had a series of those kind of revelations with it that have moved me along. Is that what you asked?
Yeah. In a way, yeah. Uh-huh. I also was wondering if, though you've only recently been able to say, okay, through therapy, I've come to understand that I've been dealing with X, Y, or Z for all my life. Before you got to that point of realization, whether you can now look back and understand how those things were fueling your work, if at all.
I mean, that's interesting that you're saying that too, because I think the thing of judging our competitiveness is odd with things like music and comedy, because there's something like unseemly about, and in fact, I grew up during the time period of, I can't play as good as this guy can play. That's all it's like everyone was playing faster. I went to Dick Grove music workshops. It's like all of those things were like trying to be competitive, but there is a part of that when you're a little kid and you're playing with a tennis racket and you're the Beatles. There's a part of that I think is good. You know, it's the unseemly side of it is if you're not aware of it. You know, like, I'm going to crush the competition.
Yeah.
Right.
Battle of the bands. Right. I don't think none of us ever going to be that crazy about that side.
Right.
How do you feel? I mean, did you feel competitive when you?
No.
Never, even when you started?
I don't think I've ever felt competitive. I feel resentful.
Wow. Yeah.
Fueled by resentment.
But no. I've never been competitive. I mean, you know, when I started playing music, it was really in the shittiest realms of like the New York punk scene, and to be competitive meant what at a certain point? You know, it's just like, you're playing for, a handful of people in a rubble-filled basement on the Lower East Side,
But that's the thing where didn't you kind of all then you kind of entered in a world where you all kind of agreed on a thing that, in other words, like I'm sure you had problems, but that wasn't going to be one of the problems.
That's right. I think that's true. Yeah.
You were, and I still was influenced by I wish I had as many fingers on my hand as Eric Clapton. It's like it hasn't been to the last 10 years like have really let go of emotionally. That's kind of a ridiculous, simplistic way to look at music, but it's all emotional. It's still based on, at one point someone's going to say, I don't think you're a very good guitarist.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you, the realms that does still affect me when I'm hobbling myself by getting overly concerned with how I'm presenting among people who are on paper more talented than I am. Last night at the show, for listeners, we did a Christmas show too this weekend at Largo, and Andy was one of our guests. And during the first song, somebody had turned the standby on my amp on, so there was no sound that came out of it. It totally threw me off, and it took me like half the show to come back. And that's stupid, and I should not be doing that at this point in my life and career.
Well, it's interesting though, because you did feel that. I mean, I'm still in the camp of, I'm too far in the camp of it. I never allow myself to have the feeling. So if you so I always like, it's okay that you know. Right. So, but it may not be your issue. That
intellectually, obviously, like I know it was okay. Like it was fine. We played the songs. I sang fine. The songs are fine.
Yeah.
But emotionally.
But you guys, see, I think you probably, I don't know. I think you probably don't realize. Yes, you do. You know that you're comfortable with your technique. So that's the thing. It's hard for me. Playing music, it's like I don't, I haven't done it enough to really understand all the things, to
internalize it as your own language that you could speak in.
Right,
yeah.
Right. And I am nowhere near getting past this. That's Aimee Mann. That's Ted Leo. That's Aimee Mann. And when I went off tune in the last thing, I was like, I want to run off the stage because it's unacceptable that you would be off tune. Andy, is it the voice inside me? Mm-hmm. It's not acceptable that you would be off tune because that means that you're bad at what you're doing. Because the way I reacted to what my parents didn't, whatever it wasn't given to me, was I also said I will do it. I am going to be the best musician. So that was where the competitive thing hurt me in a way. But that's what motivated me. Because then I kind of like just stumbled into comedy. A friend of mine asked me if I wanted to do it, and it was like instantly. When I was in music, I was in cover bands. When I started doing comedy, I was at the Improv.
Wow.
It's like if you had told me in 1978, Andy, okay, just head on up to Madam Wang's West. And I mean, the thing was so frightening to me, And so it must have been. It's just everybody has a different life and how they do it, but
it's fascinating to me that all your angst is about music, the road that you did not take. And the road that was just this accidental road, that an easy thing that you never imagined you would do for a career is what you do.
I played violin for 14 years, and I hated it after about 3 weeks.
Oh my God!
And didn't realize till therapy that my violin teacher, who was nicer than my mom at the time, my mom was depressed, but I didn't realize she was depressed.
Yeah.
So
she was just not available.
She wasn't available. It was like and I thought my violin teacher was so great because she was focused on me and everything.
Yeah.
But now I realized that she had her own issues, and I would always feel like she knew I didn't rehearse. So one time she said, it's like, let me show you how. This is what happened if you. Why wouldn't she at one point go? You obviously don't seem happy with the instrument.
Right.
And that's bad because she thought I was a prodigy, and I don't think I was a prodigy.
Oh my God!
Because I think she even got the wrong thing going in, which was, this kid picks up anything easily.
Right.
Which when I was a guitar teacher, I used to tell students, like, it doesn't matter how long you get it. Once you get it, you get it.
Yeah.
So don't worry about that. But I was so scared of losing her approval. And I went through this all through life until I had a Taekwondo thing. I went through many times. This is one of the main things in my life.
What belt did you get to
with.
in Taekwondo?
I'm a third-degree black belt.
Really?
I feel like I'm lying by saying that, but it's too long to go into because of the issues with my teacher. But he became another person I transferred the thing to.
Yeah.
And now
looking for a mentor, everybody's flawed. You end up disappointed.
Right. Was there anybody coming up in comedy who filled that role in a different way, like in a more positive way?
Yeah, like Paul Feig, who we all started together. Paul Feig and Judd Apatow and Doug Benson and all these guys. Paul Feig was so complimentary to me, way beyond what I felt about myself, that it really encouraged me. Like, he clearly liked me more than I was good as a comic. And then another guy who did it, really did a great thing for me, was Al Lubell, who was a great comedian. Mm-hmm. I was ready for feedback on my act, and I asked him. And he was very honest, but it was helpful because he said, look, this is like in the 80s. Well, you're doing a lot of stuff about sex, you're getting laughs, but is that really what you want to do? And because he was so nice and everything, I was able to take it and think about it and internalize it in the right way. So that's one thing I think is cool, I'm sure is with musicians too, is that when we're positive to each other, it can be really amazing.
Yeah. And it's really interesting that all it takes is one person saying something in a not mean way that it's like all you're looking for.
And I have so many of the other memories.
Yeah.
Like people, I'm not going to bring it up because like it's a friend of mine, but like a friend of mine gave me bad feedback once that was like crushing to me, because I really liked his comedy. It's like the other night when I said, "Arsenic so," it's like, and then so Aimee went, I swear to God, 3 years ago, I would have just assumed that I had hurt your feelings. I wouldn't even want to know why I hurt your feelings, because my wife had to tell me how loud my voice is. I don't know how loud it is. So, but I was able to literally go, oh, I think that was just really too loud.
Yeah, it's just a volume thing.
Very too loud. And it's like, it doesn't have to get past that, Andy. So, that's right. And so that's really like growth. But for my whole life, I assumed that every look on everybody's face had something to do with what I was doing, and I could make them, if I could cheer them up or make them happy with me.
Mm-hmm. We're going to take a break now, but we'll be back with Andy Kindler and the art of process. Do you have strategies for letting that stuff go or getting past it? Just things that you tell yourself?
Okay. Well, one thing I do is this, and it's worked so well. I'll walk down the street, and I used to, like, if I go like that, and I see someone in the car, and they go, "Do they think I was picking in my ear?"
He's rubbing his ear.
I'm rubbing my ear.
He's rubbing his ear.
He's totally rubbing his ear right now.
Right. For 3 or 4 hours, he's staying there. Stay in that back. I'm able to completely eliminate most of those low-level OCD traps.
Right.
Because I can see them. The horrible thing about OCD is, like, if you have the germ thing, which I don't have, is like when you convince yourself you're doing it for the right, that is good what you're doing.
Yeah.
To me, some of my stuff was so disconnected from the truth, like hitting a pebble in the car.
Yeah.
So that person's look, I can defeat worrying about that person. I could really turn those things off.
Right.
But sometimes I can't. Sometimes I can't turn it off. Like I had a thing, I was working on this project, and my therapist was like really helpful to me. She said, "Are you willing to give up this I mean, she's not directive like this, but it's like how we got there. Are you ready to, would you be willing to give up this project?" And what she said was absolutely right. It's like, I was not going to get any better until I did something with it. Like, I ended up running it by Susan or whatever. Yeah. I was going to be stuck in that same OCD hell, because as soon as you get into that thing of like, it's my fault and I'm doing it, and then you fall into your old things of just beat yourself up more about doing it.
Right.
As opposed to, you have a disorder, you can't always avoid it, but maybe you could avoid writing these kind of pitches in the future. So it's amazing.
Yeah.
It was amazing because I didn't see myself wallowing in that. I wasn't going to get out of it.
Right.
Yeah. To do something different to interrupt the cycle.
Yeah, because I had written, she thought I hadn't written, it was like a pitch. She thought I hadn't written anything. I'd written 50 pages. And so it was like, it was that I wasn't letting it out of my head.
Right.
And I was like just yelling at myself, "Oh, they're going to be mad. I'm late again."
Are you just like revising and revising and revising? Or?
Yeah, because I don't. And also, there's certain things you can't explain in a pitch. So I was like, well, they won't understand it. I was pitching it to them, and they're going to pitch it to somebody. They're going to pitch it. They're going to pitch the show.
Right.
So I just wouldn't let go of the part where all my fears, like, oh, well, they know what I'm talking about. But once I let it go, then they would ask the question, "Oh, when you were saying that, is that what you were talking about?"
Right.
I have not been able to do that. I wasn't able to answer emails for years. I wasn't able to answer texts. I mean, I did the bare minimum of what I had to do, but I was scared of all these things because of the perfectionist thing.
Yeah, because you're not going to give the right, an email, you get a long email, you're afraid that you have to write this long response. It has to be perfect, and then the email never gets answered.
I know.
Yeah. That's a giant problem. I have to just go, just write a line and hit send.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and that's
write a line, spell check it, hit send. Doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be done.
And medications help me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on Prozac, and it's really good for OCD.
This is very interesting to me because therapy as a part of process is a real thing.
For sure.
It's a real thing that lack of self-awareness gets in the way of any kind of creative endeavor because you just can't, perfectionism, especially self-judgment, you just can't proceed. You judge it, you think it's terrible, nobody will want to hear it, you're worthless, and then what? Then nothing happens.
Yeah, the idea that one has to maintain a level of mental illness and not be under medication to be at one's best creatively is utterly wrong.
Yeah, I think what's your 2 cents on the idea of, if you get therapy that's going to somehow interfere with the creative process or...
Luckily, I've been doing comedy for so long that nothing that like the medicine is not affecting like my stream of consciousness or anything. It's not affecting my style. That's what I would be worried about if I had done it when I first starting comedy. That I'm trying to imagine because I can't believe I was so resistant to therapy all these years. I was like an idiot, like very self-absorbed. I know there's a lot of bad therapists, so that was part of it too. But the idea that... What did you ask me?
What's your 2 cents on the mythology that madness
Insanity
and create,
No. I think at my point, it's like I'm comfortable that feeling better. And I told my wife, I said, I'd rather at this point in my life feel better about myself than have a career. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It got to that point where I can't. It's and it was because it was on Twitter and people could see it. See me kind of like get into arguments, argue with trolls and all these things. Eventually that is part of my therapy because it's like, it sounds like a cliche. You cannot control what people think about you.
Mm-hmm.
And I always was like, I don't want Aimee Mann to see me get mad. I don't want Ted Leo likes my political stuff, but if he sees my political stuff as being too obnoxious, and it's all this thing of now Aimee Mann's going to be my God.
Yeah, I'm going to be a higher power. Yeah.
Yeah. Now Ted Leo is going to, and it's like, I keep wanting to find the perfect God that way.
Yeah.
But it can't come from outside of yourself.
Yeah.
Can't do
So then I know it has. I do have ADHD and OCD, and my mind does go blank every 7 seconds, and it's been going blank that way here too. And I thought I had early onset dementia, but I'm convinced it's anxiety.
Yeah, I think anxiety really affects your memory.
Yeah, you don't imprint things.
Yeah, you don't.
Your brain doesn't imprint things.
If you're anxious, nothing goes to your
hippocampus.
Yeah, hippocampus.
The most hippocampus I went to once was Harvard during the 80s. I will still do horrible puns till the day I die.
We love a pun.
Yeah,
we're not anti-pun.
Yeah,
people,
we're all about puns.
I would even do the "you're standing on my air hose" joke.
I don't know
if I'm
that.
ever in the hospital. It's been on every comedy. Like, what are you saying? What are you saying?
Yeah.
You're standing on my air hose.
God.
Boom!
Oh my God.
One more quick break and we'll be back on The Art of Process with Andy Kindler.
Andy, I wanted to ask you about when you said that your earliest influence was your father.
Yeah.
What parts of his voice do you think you incorporated into your own?
I always use this one example for how funny my father was. He's a very sciencey kind of guy and very cynical and skeptical. So I'm reading one of these natural homeopathic healers things. I brochure to him and I go, yeah, and we will never use lingo that will alienate you. And then my father, they don't know any lingo, so it's like that was him. He was just like in the moment, able to be wherever that comes from. He was able to snap into it. And it's like that sarcastic. It's like he was a little bit like Rickles.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because I think he learned to do it probably for a lot of the reasons that I do it. Like I go into a deli, I hope I have a good set. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like it's been so hard to let that part go because that part I do worry about. Like I have domination syndrome, not sexual, the can't shut my mouth thing. I'm constantly monitoring myself all the time. What am I saying? What do they think I'm saying? But when you can slow it down, see, I don't know where I was going with that. Do you have any idea? Did it make any sense?
Yeah. Well, what I was thinking about was that there are a couple of different reasons, more than a couple of reasons, why people who are very good at those kinds of quick, chimey things are good at it, and sometimes it's not having those worries about what you're saying. It's like it's a confidence that's not a negative thing. It's just a looseness.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Sometimes it's deflection.
Yes,
it's deflection away from any actual serious.
Yeah,
my dad was like that too, and I could be like that too. So I mean, it can be used for evil in a way, but I think there's something very Jewishy about it too. Or any group that's been traditionally rounded up, or whatever you want. That line didn't work the other night. Why should it work here? It's like the sense of humor in the face of the Viktor Frankl, man's search for meaning type of thing. I really think there's something to that. That my dad was able to see the absurdity, and I think everybody in my family is that way. At some point, they're able to see the absurdity and separate a little bit from the pain of it.
Yeah.
So I think mostly it's a good thing. But I was very quickly on my own. I went to school upstate New York, and I had so much fun. And I went out to L.A.
Where'd you go?
I went to Binghamton, SUNY Binghamton, and I had so much fun up there. And I thought everybody was funny. And then realized I got out of college. Not everybody has a sense. That's the thing. I took it for granted too.
Yeah.
So, well, you're funny. So, what does that mean?
Right. It didn't stand out to you as a specialty.
I mean, I thought I always thought about. I don't know about you, but like at some point when I was a kid, I wanted to do everything performery that I would see. But I didn't specifically know to go that route. And I think my problem with everything I've done, not a problem, but now that I see it, like watercolors, all these things I enjoy doing. As soon as I can realize what's blocking me is something that will never be resolved, it's unresolvable. It literally is unresolvable to decide how good you are at something by thinking with your mind about while all the other people would. Now, Ted, if I put 15 more years into the guitar, how would I line up against Django Reinhardt? I mean, it's an unresolvable thing,
right.
And it's not only but it's okay that it's pain, but then it's also okay that you have that pain too. And so it is. I know it sounds like very pop culture.
No. I mean, we this is not necessarily what the podcast is about, but we talk about it all the time. So it's important and it's true. And again, I think what you just said about accepting that it's okay that you have that kind of pain is another part of it, because if you're also fighting against that, then you're fighting like 9 different battles at the same time.
Yeah, you don't want to judge yourself in addition to all the other judgment. You don't want to judge yourself for having a feeling about it.
I think that thing I think I'm assuming most people are more normal. Every emotion, one of the hardest things in therapy was like that I have a thought doesn't mean anything on its own.
It's just a thought.
So I would repress so many thoughts that were coming through my head. I would just repress them and not realize that they're all just stuff going through, which is why I wish I could do more meditation, because I think that's really... So in my family, everything was black and white. And so I would feel, if I had a greedy... I thought about this the other night. I was like, it's a perfect example. I go, well, if healthcare goes away, at least I have pretty good health care insurance with my, actors unions. And when I'm 65, I'll get Medicare. It's like, so I'll be okay. Was that what you're saying? You'll be okay, Andy? Is that what you're saying? Oh, you'll be okay? And then you start to, it's like, I'm already arguing about having the momentary thought of, well, I'll be okay. That has to turn into a debate.
Yeah.
And I don't think everyone goes through that. I think that's particularly my family.
Yeah, that's exhausting.
It is exhausting.
Yeah.
So you guys are not so hard. How do you feel about yourselves in the moment? I know it's like, I always think of you being, I don't know if I just think you're very direct. I've learned a lot of things from Aimee. I haven't learned as much from you, Ted, yet.
Well, there's time.
It'll happen.
But I always admired that Aimee was like, you know how to take care of yourself with what you're going through.
So, sometimes I just think I have some of the struggles you do, but probably not quite as much. My thing with music was that people I knew who played music played it better and earlier than I did. I wasn't really a musician. I went to school and I was a believer in learning, and I saw people practice, and I thought, well, that is one thing I can do. I can practice. I saw people practice like 4 or 6 hours a day. I was like, I will be one of those people, because, there was a romanticism in practicing and working. And when I saw that I did get better, that feeling that music was this magic thing that you either had or you didn't kind of went away. And I thought, well, maybe I can do this. And that was really, really exciting. But, in other things, I mean, certainly I think you were about to talk about this, maybe anxiety about shows, and I hope the show goes well. I hope that, I mean, I've certainly had thoughts of shows that don't go well, and struggling with the thought of, if this show doesn't go well, it's one domino after another, and then my career will be over, and you're like, Jesus Christ, you just forgot the lyrics to one song. Like, who cares? Just move on. Yeah. And I do have to practice that. I have to go like, let it go. It's in the past.
When I am doing my own headlining thing under my own name, I'm past that. I think because I know that I have leeway with the audience to be human, When I am doing things with other people, or, where I'm not even, just not at the top of the bill, I still have a lot of that, where like, if every moment of this does not go well, it's a domino effect. It's gonna
or letting people down, like
letting the people who invited me down.
I get very anxious. If somebody invites me on stage to sing harmony with them, I'm like, no, because I don't want I don't want to screw it up. I don't feel like I'm good at that, or that I don't really know how to prepare for it. I mean, like the Christmas show was very nerve-wracking because there was a lot of things to prepare for, but not always a way to prepare for it because nobody was in town and we couldn't really rehearse.
Oh, I loved that. I mean, that was very instructive for me when I came to the Friday thing, because I could tell you didn't look like this is a hassle, but you look like this is a serious, we got a lot to do.
Yeah.
And they were all coming together at the same time.
Yeah.
So I actually was able to use this process better than I think I've ever done on any project, of being able to just listen to the song, Andy. And I almost started to spin out of control on the Friday because you said, I sent you the song, and then to be able to admit, I have not prepared, And so then it's like, I'm not lying. I'm not trying to like not do my work and put it forward. And so that allowed me then to just relax a little bit. And this is the same thing with everything within the show, because these sketches, it's very hard. I feel like I'm not comfortable with doing music, so I'm not comfortable doing music. It could go well, but accept that part of it. It's like, so that's the thing. I thought the directing that you did, or you both did, I mean, you put the show together very, very well. I mean,
Thank you.
So
it was hard. And the hardest thing for me was, we had 3 comedy sections, but they all had to work together, but totally different people doing different things and also what we didn't really know how to. Do we write a thing for people, or are people going to improvise? Do we how do you direct? Like, I didn't, like, how do comedy people do their comedy thing? I don't know.
It's just, everything to me is the same thing. It's like, I love to draw. I love to do all these things. It's like, if you love to draw, Andy, just keep drawing.
Just draw. Yeah.
Just keep drawing. Yeah. And of course I want to make books. Of course I want to make songs. Of course I want, but mostly once you get past your head, everything else kind of does take care of itself.
Yeah. I do find in the last year or so, because I also, would paint, and I was thinking about, I can paint sort of, but, I'll never reach that point of having it be a language that I can really speak in this kind of, subliminal way that you do with music, where when it's an art, that's your main thing, where you weave your subconscious things into it. And it'll never be that. It'll be, at best, it'll be like, I painted a picture of Ted Leo that looks like Ted Leo. Yay.
But I wish I could let that part of it even go, because I think even that part of it's like, well, Andy, if I have the right approach to music that I should have had when I'm younger, will I have the best of Andy Kindler's music? It's like, it's such an unreal world in a way that I put myself into. It's like, I can never, in a way, go, I'm just doing this. I want everything to be a masterpiece, kind of.
Yeah.
So that
me
never
too.
is. It's never going to go from me.
Yeah.
It's not, if I said to you, look, I want to be a ballet. I've never tried it, but I'm going to be ballet. Then you might have to say, Andy, maybe a little too old to start with the turning. So some things you can't. If I said to you, I'm going to be a relief pitcher for the Cardinals. You mark my words. What do you guys think? And if you didn't say, look, Andy, there's not a lot of 60-year-old relief pitchers. That would be a reasonable request.
Right.
But you still would let me. Aimee has the face of like, I'd let you follow your dream, Andy, like a George Plimpton type thing.
But I don't know. I don't know if I would. I think pruning. There's something to pruning.
Yes.
Right?
Sure.
Prune off a couple of hobbies and prune off a couple of dreams. Don't reach for your dreams, Andy. Is what
I
I'm
hated
saying.
Yeah.
Prune off some of those dreams.
Prune off some dreams.
Yeah. I can't practice violin 6 hours a day. Not going to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
you could if you wanted to.
It also has to do with just focus and energy and aging.
Yeah. Yeah. I think now we know how to focus. We don't have as much energy, but we know how to focus what energy we do have. Mm-hmm. I had a whole period where I took sewing lessons just because I thought it would be like good for my brain to work with spatial reasoning. Like seriously, I did. And it was like interesting, but I mostly just followed instructions and like did what she told me and then like made a thing that I never wore. But like that was a lot of time spent. And now I sort of feel like, you know what? Fuck sewing.
Right.
Like I like writing songs. This is what I like, right? This is what I like to do. Whether it's like a dumb parody song for our Christmas show or, a song we write for a friend for their birthday or a song for my album or a song for a musical, like whatever it is, I like to write songs.
I can't wait to get back to writing songs.
Do you love writing too?
I like writing songs, yeah.
And the more I do it, the more I like it. Like the more I do focus on it in a regular way, like, like it's a job and get up and do it, every day, the more fun it is.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like Randy Newman, but without the all the amazing things he produced. Because he says he hates writing songs.
Does he really?
But maybe he used to say that in the old days.
Randy Newman.
Oh yeah.
That weirdly makes a lot of sense. If it just
he seems very crotchety.
Yeah.
But I want to. If I do write more songs, I want to have fun doing it. I don't want to torture myself,
right.
And I think I can do that.
Let's go back to a little podcasty chat about when you started comedy. A friend just said you should do this. You started doing it, and then people always want this, like, when did you know that you were going to be a musician or whatever? And like, there was never a pivotal moment, where you were like, yes, I'm going to be a musician, and it sounds like there was not a comedy moment like that for you.
Well, there was, in the sense that I basically I said, I'm quitting this playing. I couldn't play or anything. I hated everything. When I started to get the comedy thing going, and it started to have a momentum of its own, because I think there is like kind of an egalitarian side to comedy. Like really anybody can go anywhere and put their name in a hat. And I think I always felt music was this more gatekeepers at the beginning. But that's probably just my own image again.
No, I think you're probably right.
Well, with comedy, it got. I mean, comedy it started to get going. I would do these things, and it's just a career. I also came up in the '80s when there was a comedy boom.
Right.
So within 4 years of starting stand-up, I was on the road 30 weeks a year, 40 weeks a year.
You do Rascals in West Orange, New Jersey?
I did Rascals in West Orange. I had a horrible club.
It's a terrible place. Yeah.
It's terrible. The club owners liked me. That's the only reason why I got booked there. That's the thing that people don't realize. If you go 10 minutes outside of New York City, like on the island.
Oh, yeah.
Jack's Top of the Town.
Jack's Top of the Town. Where was that?
Out in Huntington. Jimmy's Comedy. I was too young to play Jimmy's Comedy Alley.
Wow.
In Bayside.
Rick
Pacino owned the Rainy Night House, which was a music place in Queens. And I remember going there and I had sangria. Remember when sangria was a thing?
You ever go to Beefsteak Charlie's? Beer, wine, and sangria? Was there?
Oh yeah, I think I did go there.
I love that you know the names of all these places.
So anyway, just to button that up.
Yeah.
It just started to take, because there was so much work there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I feel like I have a career here, and since then I felt like I had a career, but then I could still get so worried about everything else, like I'm going to be broke, and I've never felt like I have a career. I've got more money in the bank that I could handle.
Andy, what do you think is your strongest suit? Like, what is the one aspect of what you do that you don't worry about, that you feel like, yeah, I can do that?
I think the self-deprecating deconstruction is something that I didn't invent, but I always feel like it always changes the energy when I'm able to not just go on, like when people go on and they have no sense of themselves, or they're trying to argue something and it doesn't come out well. Well, I'm always able to go, sorry about that last couple of seconds when my mind was, they can't all be gems.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
basic idea, it has always worked for me in general to pull me out of things. But it's unbelievable. Every time I've said, I'll never have a bad moment again on stage now that I've figured it out. It's like, yes, it is like surfing, but I know that I'm always kind of on the board, and then you'll have like the worst night of your life. That's always part of it.
Yeah.
Not as bad a night as your life.
Yeah.
But you still gonna have bad feeling, because that's the thing I'm worried about. Is like, will I not enjoy it? And I still enjoy it, so I love it.
How much do you put into actually like writing a set? Do you mostly just give yourself beats, or do you actually kind of repeat,
Well,
like, work stuff out aloud alone?
This is another basic big thing of my whole life, is that I have no memory. I don't have my jokes go together really. So the only way I could do sets would be when I would get like I had like six or seven Letterman spots, and so those were all like I could organize them, and sometimes a couple times on TV I lost my spot completely. I'm looking around, and I knew the name of the bit was about Michelangelo, but I didn't know what the bit was. So my whole life I've been struggling with Michelangelo, and so I'm always struggling with my mind in a way, and I really think all of that's anxiety too, because I came from this movement where we used like index cards and all this kind of stuff. But then a lot of times when I go to clubs now, I don't like to take out the index cards, and I wrestle with myself. But the point is, whether I take out an index card or I don't take out an index card, it's all irrelevant. It's all something I'm building up in myself. It's all higher levels of okay, you're okay at that, but now you'll come up with some other level of anxiety.
Yeah.
So it never goes completely away, but that's the big struggle for me, is I wish I could get that desire, I don't know, the desire to never have to worry about how it's going to come out.
Yeah.
It's unrealistic.
Yeah, one of my big problems is I know if too many things are different, I will start getting anxious. And if I get anxious, I forget stuff. And I've had a couple of shows where I just, I was like in a fugue state, and I just kept forgetting lyrics to one song after another. And, you know, like one time is kind of funny and you can make a joke about it. 2 times is like, ha 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 ha. Is it 4 times you feel like you're Loretta Lynn having this public meltdown. And, and it's, and it is kind of terrifying.
Yeah.
I've had a little bit of things like panic attacks, kind of. I had a couple in my 20s, and mostly it's low-level anxiety. So then I started to go, like when I was in New York, I said, oh, now I'm going to start to not be able to do gigs anymore and all these. But luckily for me, it has been going away. It has been going away. Because I'm a big fan of Ellen Forney. I don't know if you know, she wrote the book called Marbles, which is an amazing book. And she has a new book about bipolar. People have bipolar disorder, and also just any kind of mental things. And she's like, so I would get very upset recently when I realized, oh, I'm not complete. The desire to be completely cured.
Yeah.
Is it's nowheresville. And if you have OCD, the thing where you go, will this panic ever go away? That's just OCD. Yeah. So there's ups and downs. I know I didn't answer that question clearly. But I know that my big fear is what's happening right now is like my mind goes blank.
Right.
Yeah.
So in a perfect world, here's what I think is a perfect world. You should walk in with podcast. Oh, I don't remember, but the next moment's going to be amazing. That's the setting yourself up for too much expectation.
To have faith that you're always going to be able to recover and just surf into the next moment.
Or if I have a pain, my whole thing is, am I going to die?
Yeah.
Like my big thing is, I have a pain. Do I? The first thing is, I can't cancel the show.
Oh God, yeah.
So you go. It's like,
oh yeah,
end of the world.
Mm-hmm.
So I had appendicitis once. I had to cancel the show. It's like, but The idea that I can't cancel the show, that's my problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've suffered from that.
Yeah.
The show must go on, right?
Ted had pneumonia. You got pneumonia on the road.
The one time I've ever been to the hospital for myself was on tour in Spain. I got pneumonia, and like we had shows booked, and I was getting worse and worse, and I could barely stand at one point, and we were trying to sound check, and honestly, I was looking around for a little bit of somebody else to go like, you don't have to do this, Nobody else really did it. So for once in my life, I was like, I don't think I have to do this, And I was like, I think I need someone to take me to the hospital right now.
Oh, that's so... You could have died, right?
Yeah. I don't know, but yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And it cost me 11 euros for an emergency room visit and meds.
And there's one guy still upset with you in Stuttgart when you canceled that one show.
Thank you, Andy.
This was wonderful.
This is really, really fun
wonderful.
and interesting.
Yeah, this is good.
I'm not going to say all the other things I also think. That just let you know what's going on. I did monitor myself the whole time through. I yelled at myself a little bit. What am I, Mr. Philosophy? But I'm not going to spend the end of the podcast, which I normally would do, apologizing for any of the rough spots. I'm going to say, not that it was meant to be this way, but I let it go.
Thank you, Andy Kindler.
Thank you so much, Andy Kindler. This has been The Art of Process, and thank you so much to our guest, Andy Kindler.
New episodes of The Art of Process come out every other Monday, but next week we're going to jump in early so we can participate in the Maximum Fun Pledge Drive. So keep your eyes and ears peeled for a special bonus episode with Rhea Butcher.
I'm Aimee Mann, and that's Ted Leo in the other body.
Sometimes it seems like we share a brain, but we are in fact two bodies.
MaximumFun.org.
Comedy and culture. Artist owned.
Listener supported.
Now, we just took a break, folks. I want to tell you something that I have a podcast. It's called Thought Spiral. And I tell people download it this way or wherever you like to get your podcasts. Why do they say that like that?
Yeah,
It makes it very suspicious.
People will move on to the next option if the first option's no.
Right.